In the vast Pacific Ocean, where blue water stretches farther than the eye can see, a storm once gathered, one forged not from nature, but from ambition, empire, and the unbreakable determination of a nation pushed into war. Before we dive into this harrowing journey through fire, steel, and sacrifice, take a moment to imagine this: an entire world at war, and an America rising from the ashes of a surprise attack to wage the most brutal campaign ever fought across the sea. This is the story of the Pacific Inferno told in full, and told with the heartbeat of the men who lived it. And if you want more unforgettable stories from history's frontline, make sure you stay with us until the end. The Pacific War did not begin with explosions, at least not for America. It began with tension, long before Pearl Harbor, as Japan expanded aggressively across East Asia. The United States watched uneasily, condemning Japan's invasion of China, but avoiding direct confrontation. Yet the tides of empire rarely recede peacefully. Japan's militant leadership saw resources, oil, and territory as the lifeblood of its vision for dominance. And when the US imposed embargoes to restrain that ambition, Tokyo's war machine rolled toward a single explosive decision: attack the United States before America could stop them. December 7th, 1941. Morning sunlight danced across the waters of Pearl Harbor, catching the hulls of battleships that lay anchored in peace. Sailors wiped down decks, prepared breakfast, wrote letters home. Nothing felt dangerous. Nothing felt unusual. And then, roaring down from the clouds, came the shadows. Engines screamed, torpedoes splashed, bombs shrieked. In minutes, the harbor turned into a nightmare of fire and oil, explosions splitting the air, ships capsizing, and hundreds of men fighting for their lives. The attack shocked the nation, igniting an anger deeper than anything America had felt in decades. The next day, the United States declared war, and the Pacific became the proving ground for a generation. But despite the devastation, something crucial survived at Pearl Harbor: America's aircraft carriers. They were at sea during the attack, and their survival would reshape the entire war. Across the Pacific, Japan advanced rapidly: Hong Kong, the Philippines, Guam, Wake Island, falling one by one. American troops on Bataan fought with extraordinary courage, starving and exhausted until surrender was unavoidable. Those captured suffered the brutal Bataan Death March, an atrocity that seared itself into American memory. The enemy seemed unstoppable, but history rarely stays on one path for long. America struck back at last with the Doolittle Raid, a daring bombing run on Tokyo that lifted national morale. The damage to Japan was small, but the message was enormous. America would not stay down. Japan, humiliated and furious, sought to finish the American fleet once and for all. That decision led to a battle that would redefine naval warfare forever. Midway, a tiny atoll in the middle of the ocean, a place few Americans had even heard of. But thanks to intelligence breakthroughs, US commanders knew Japan was coming. On June 4th, 1942, the greatest trap in naval history snapped shut. American dive bombers flying through flak, smoke, and chaos descended on the Japanese fleet. In 5 burning minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were turned into fireballs. A 4th followed soon after. Pilots who had trained relentlessly now fought like veterans. Many never returned, but their sacrifice shattered Japan's offensive power. Midway was not just a victory, it was a turning point. The momentum, once all Japan's, began to shift. Still, victory in the Pacific would never be easy. The ocean's vastness, the remoteness of each island, and the savage determination of the Japanese forces created a battlefield unlike any the world had seen. The American strategy that emerged was as bold as it was deadly: island hopping, fight only where necessary, capture airfields, bypass strongholds, cut Japan's empire apart piece by piece until the mainland lay exposed. The first major step: Guadalcanal. August 1942. Marines landed on a jungle-covered island they had barely heard of. facing an enemy dug deep into the terrain, waiting in silence. What followed was months of brutal combat disease, mud, rain, starvation, ambushes, night raids, and thousands of deaths. Marines fought hand-to-hand in the dark, listening to whispers and screams echoing through the trees. The naval battles offshore were equally vicious, with ships sinking in flames just miles from shore. Yet by February 1943, the island was secured. America had its first major land victory, and the island-hopping campaign had only just begun. The Pacific was a battleground where nature became the enemy just as much as the soldiers. Heat choked the air. Mosquitoes spread malaria. Jungle rot ate its skin. Supplies were scarce. Letters from home took months to arrive. And every step forward brought soldiers closer to fortified Japanese positions designed for one purpose: kill as many invaders as possible before dying. Surrender for the Japanese was seen as dishonor. And so Americans found themselves fighting an enemy who preferred death over retreat. Next came the Gilberts and Marshalls. Tarawa, a tiny island but one of the most heavily defended. The beaches were shallow, the tide low, and landing craft became trapped on reefs. Marines jumped into chest-deep water, bullets slicing through the waves. Many died before their boots touched land. Those who reached the beach faced concrete bunkers, machine guns, and artillery hidden beneath sand and coral. The battle lasted just 76 hours, but felt like an eternity. When it was over, nearly every Japanese defender was dead. America realized the cost of every island ahead would be steep. Saipan and Tinian were next. These islands brought American bombers within reach of Tokyo. Japanese civilians fed propaganda, feared American cruelty so deeply that many tragically leapt from cliffs rather than surrender. Soldiers fought ferociously, launching massive banzai charges that overwhelmed American lines before being repelled with devastating losses. By the end, the defeat shook Japan's leadership. The Prime Minister resigned, and America tightened its grip. Then came Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle in history. Japan threw everything it had left: battleships, carriers, cruisers into a desperate gamble to stop the American advance. Kamikaze attacks appeared for the first time, pilots turning themselves into weapons, crashing exploding planes into ships with terrifying impact. Yet even with this new tactic, the U.S. Navy prevailed. The sea lanes were America's once again. But nothing would prepare the world for Iwo Jima. A volcanic wasteland of black ash and jagged rock, the island seemed unremarkable. But its airfields were crucial for American bombers. The Japanese knew this and built an underground fortress of tunnels, bunkers, and hidden artillery. When the Marines landed on February 19, 1945, they faced no immediate fire. Confusion rippled across the beach. And then the world exploded. From beneath the ground, machine guns erupted, artillery burst, and snipers picked off soldiers from invisible positions. Iwo Jima became a grinding, relentless hell. Flamethrowers and grenades were the only way to root out defenders. Casualties soared. But despite everything, Marines climbed Mount Suribachi and raised the American flag, an image frozen in time, symbolizing courage, unity, and the unbearable cost of victory. Okinawa came next, and it was worse. Rain fell endlessly. Mud consumed everything. Kamikaze attacks increased. Civilians were caught between armies, suffering unimaginable tragedies. American soldiers fought through hills, caves, and sheer cliffs. The Japanese army, more than 100,000 strong, fought to the last man. Okinawa became the bloodiest battle of the Pacific, and its horrors forced U.S. leaders to confront a grim truth. Invading Japan itself would cost millions of lives. In the summer of 1945, with Japan refusing to surrender, American bombers ignited cities with massive fire raids. The war had reached a breaking point. And then came the deployment of a weapon unlike anything humanity had known: Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The destruction was instant, apocalyptic, and final. Japan surrendered shortly after, bringing the Pacific War to an end. America's soldiers came home changed forever. They had fought across thousands of miles of ocean, through jungles, mountains, beaches, ash, and fire. They crossed landscapes shaped by ancient traditions and modern warfare, encountering allies who fought beside them and enemies who fought to their last breath. They returned with medals, scars, memories they rarely spoke of, and a legacy that shaped the world. Freedom in the Pacific was earned at a price too high to measure, with courage too deep to forget. The Pacific Inferno was more than a military campaign. It was a test of spirit, a test of unity, a test of a nation's ability to rise from devastation, fight across oceans, and protect the values it held dear. This story is a solemn reminder. Peace is fragile, freedom is precious, and those who fought did so not for glory, but for each other, for home, and for the hope of a better world. If this journey moved you, honor the men who fought by giving this video a like, dropping a comment about what resonated most, and subscribing for more powerful stories from history that deserve to be remembered. Your support helps us bring the past to life and keeps these stories alive for future generations.